The shrill electronic whine of the emergency alert sliced through the usual Saturday morning city sounds filtering through my apartment window. The distant rumble of the L train, the muffled honking from impatient drivers on Clark Street, the rhythmic thump of bass from someone's car stereo blocks away. My phone, lying face down on a coffee table amidst a scattering of crumpled takeout menus and half-empty soda cans, vibrated like a trapped insect, the screen flashing that aggressive, attention-grabbing red. Emergency alert. Mass hallucinations reported in Chicago. Authorities urge complete isolation. Remain indoors and do not interact with others until further notice. Tune to local broadcast channels for official updates. Mass hallucinations? In Chicago? My brain, still clinging to the remnants of a dream where I was inexplicably fluent in dolphin language, sputtered and stalled. Hallucinations were something you read about in medical dramas or maybe saw in those cheesy late-night horror movies, not something that warranted a citywide emergency alert. Chicago was known for deep-dish pizza, brutal winters, and the Cubs' eternal struggle, not mass outbreaks of shared delusions. It had to be a mistake. Some kind of prank, a hack, maybe even a bizarrely misguided public service announcement about, I don't know, the dangers of sleep deprivation. I rubbed the sleep from my eyes. The gritty feeling under my eyelids, a familiar reminder of too many late nights spent doom-scrolling through social media and binge-watching true crime documentaries. Grabbing my lukewarm mug of yesterday's coffee from the same cluttered coffee table, I shuffled over to the window, peering out at the familiar cityscape. The sky over Wrigleyville was a typical overcast Chicago gray, threatening rain, but likely just settling for a persistent, damp chill that would seep into your bones no matter how many layers you wore. Traffic on Clark Street was its usual Saturday morning snarl, a sluggish river of red taillights and impatient horns. People were out and about, dog walkers wrestling with overly enthusiastic labradoodles, bleary-eyed couples heading to brunch, the usual weekend hustle and bustle of the city. Everything looked normal, too normal maybe. The stark contrast between the mundane reality outside my window and the alarming message on my phone was jarring, like a dissonant chord in the familiar symphony of city life. I took a tentative sip of the stale coffee, the bitter taste doing little to dispel the growing unease that was starting to prickle at the back of my neck. Probably just a false alarm. I reassured myself, another overabundance of caution from authorities who were probably just covering their bases. Chicago wasn't exactly a stranger to emergency alerts. Lake effect snow warnings were practically a seasonal tradition, and the occasional severe thunderstorm watch was just part of living in the Midwest. But mass hallucinations, that was a new one, and the complete isolation part felt particularly pointed. Like they weren't just worried about public safety, but about something more contagious, something mental. I shook my head, trying to dislodge the unsettling thought. No need to get all paranoid over a simple alert. I was probably just being overly sensitive, letting my imagination run wild. It's what I did best, after all, concocting elaborate worst-case scenarios in my head, fueled by too much caffeine and a healthy dose of urban anxiety. It was a talent of sorts, if a thoroughly useless and often self-torturing one. I decided to turn on the TV, see if there were any actual news reports about these mass hallucinations or if it was just some isolated incident blown out of proportion by the emergency alert system. Flicking through the channels with the remote, I landed on Channel 7, the local ABC affiliate, and there it was, the same red and white emergency banner emblazoned across the bottom of the screen, interrupting the usual Saturday morning infomercials for miracle mops and wrinkle creams. The anchor, a perpetually smiling blonde woman named Sarah something or other, was sitting behind her news desk, her usual sunny disposition replaced by a noticeably strained expression. "We interrupt this program for a developing emergency situation," she announced, her voice tight, lacking its usual polished cheerfulness. "Authorities are reporting unusual occurrences across the city, specifically reports of widespread perceptual anomalies. Residents are urged to remain indoors, avoid contact with others, and monitor official channels for further instructions. Repeat, authorities are urging complete isolation due to reports of mass hallucinations in the Chicago metropolitan area. This is a developing situation, and we will continue to provide updates as they become available. Perceptual anomalies? Mass hallucinations?" She was actually saying it on live TV, in that same strained, almost hesitant tone, like she herself wasn't entirely sure what she was saying or didn't quite believe it. It wasn't a prank. It wasn't a mistake. This was real. Something was actually happening. And it was serious enough to warrant interrupting Saturday morning TV and putting that forced, strained look on a local news anchor's face. Complete isolation, she repeated, the words hanging in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. Complete isolation. The phrase resonated with chilling finality, the sense of impending lockdown, of being cut off, adrift in a sea of uncertainty and fear. Why isolation? Why not just stay indoors? Why the emphasis on avoiding contact with others? Unless the hallucinations were contagious. Unless they could spread from person to person, not through germs or viruses, but through perception itself. The thought sent a shiver of genuine fear crawling down my spine, a cold, visceral dread that had nothing to do with logic or reason. It was a primal fear, a deep-seated unease that resonated with something ancient and instinctive within me. I grabbed my phone again, opening Twitter, desperate for some kind of explanation, some context beyond the vague, unsettling pronouncements of the emergency alert and the local news. My feed was, predictably, a chaotic storm of speculation, misinformation, and outright panic. Hashtag mass hallucinations, hashtag Chicago hallucinations, hashtag stay indoors. The hashtags were trending, and the posts were coming in a frantic torrent of questions, rumors, and increasingly bizarre claims. Screenshots of the emergency alert were everywhere, interspersed with panic pleas for information, nervous jokes that fell flat, and inevitable conspiracy theories, government mind control experiments, alien invasions, some kind of viral marketing campaign gone horribly wrong. People were reporting things, strange experiences, flickering lights that weren't there, whispers in empty rooms, fleeting glimpses of figures that vanished when they turned their heads. Some were dismissing it as mass hysteria, collective anxiety amplified by social media. Others were claiming to have seen more, disturbing images, frightening visions, hallucinations that were not just visual, but sensory, smells that weren't real, tastes that lingered on the tongue, phantom touches that prickled the skin, and the descriptions, they were unsettlingly consistent, recurring themes, shared images, as if everyone was seeing the same thing, or things. I scrolled further, my stomach churning with a growing sense of dread, my mind struggling to reconcile the mundane reality of my Chicago apartment with the escalating chaos unfolding online. And then I saw it, a tweet buried deep in the frantic stream, from an account with a blurry avatar and a cryptic username, @SilentObserver77. They are not hallucinations, it read, stark and chillingly direct. They are real. Do not trust what you see. Do not trust what you hear. Isolate completely. They are watching. They are watching. Who was they? And what were they watching? The tweet was vague, paranoid, almost nonsensical, but it resonated with a primal fear that was already gnawing at me, the deep-seated unease that had taken root since the emergency alert first blared. It was just a random tweet from an anonymous account, probably just some internet troll trying to stir up trouble. But in the current climate of fear and uncertainty, it felt different, ominous, like a whispered warning from the edge of reality. My phone buzzed again, another emergency alert. Emergency alert update. Mandatory shelter-in-place order issued for the city of Chicago and surrounding suburbs. All non-essential businesses and services are closed until further notice. Remain indoors, secure all doors and windows, and maintain complete isolation. Authorities are investigating the source of the perceptual anomalies. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Mandatory shelter-in-place order? Citywide lockdown? Authorities are investigating the source. That was a significant escalation. And the source of perceptual anomalies, they were finally acknowledging that it wasn't just mass hysteria, that there was something real, something external, causing these hallucinations. Something they were investigating. Something they didn't understand. Something they couldn't control. I went back to the window, peering out again, my gaze scanning the street below, the buildings across the street, the overcast sky above. The city was changing, subtly at first, but undeniably. The traffic on Clark Street had thinned out. Now just a trickle of cars moving slowly, hesitantly, like lost sheep unsure where to go. The usual Saturday morning crowd were gone, vanished as if swept away by an invisible tide. The streets were eerily empty, the sidewalks deserted, the city holding its breath, waiting. And the silence, it was different now too. Not just the absence of noise, but heavy, oppressive silence that seemed to absorb sound, to dampen the very air itself. The usual city hum, the background murmur of urban life, had faded away, leaving behind a void, a hollow emptiness that was more unsettling than any loud noise. And then I saw it, across the street, in the window of the apartment building opposite mine, a figure, standing motionless, silhouetted against the dim light of the apartment interior. A person, just standing there, staring out the window, directly at me. It was a woman, I think, or maybe a young man with long hair. It was hard to tell in the dim light and from this distance. But their posture, their stillness, their unwavering gaze, it was deeply unsettling. They just stood there, unmoving, watching me. And as I watched them, a flicker of movement in my peripheral vision. Down the street, another figure, standing in a doorway, half hidden in shadow, also watching. And then another, further down the block, near the corner, leaning against a lamppost, their face obscured by a baseball cap, but their eyes, I could feel their eyes, even from this distance, fixed on me, watching from every window, every doorway, every shadow. Figures appearing, materializing, silently observing me, their gazes heavy, expectant, unsettlingly knowing. The feeling of isolation vanished, replaced by a far more terrifying sensation. The feeling of being watched, constantly, intently, by unseen eyes, by silent figures, by something else. My phone buzzed again, another alert. Emergency alert. Confirmed reports of visual and auditory hallucinations intensifying across Chicago. Symptoms may include disorientation, paranoia, and altered perception of reality. Maintain complete isolation, and do not engage with any perceived individuals outside your immediate household. Authorities are advising extreme caution. Severe psychological distress and potential for self-harm reported in affected individuals. Severe psychological distress, potential for self-harm? That was deeply alarming. And the altered perception of reality, that was the key, wasn't it? Not just hallucinations, not just seeing things that weren't there, but a fundamental shift in perception, a warping of reality itself. And to do not engage with any perceived individuals outside your immediate household. That confirmed it. They weren't just worried about contagion. They were worried about interaction, about what might happen if we interacted with these hallucinations, or were they hallucinations? At Silent Observer 77's tweet echoed in my mind. They are not hallucinations. They are real. What if they weren't hallucinations? What if these figures, these watchers, these silent observers, what if they were real? What if they were something else? Something using the hallucinations as a disguise? Using our own perceptions against us? Using our minds as a doorway? The thought was insane, irrational, bordering on delusional. But in the current climate of fear and uncertainty, in the face of the escalating alerts and the silent watchers in the windows, it felt plausible, terrifyingly plausible. I backed away from the window, my heart pounding in my chest, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I couldn't stay here. Not by the window. Not where they could see me. Not where they could watch. I retreated into the center of my apartment, away from the windows, away from the doors, seeking refuge in the deepest, darkest corner of my living room, huddling on the floor, pulling my knees to my chest, trying to make myself as small, as inconspicuous as possible. Isolation. They wanted complete isolation. And maybe, just maybe, that wasn't just for our protection. Maybe it was for theirs. Maybe it was to keep us contained, to keep us from seeing too much, from understanding too much, from realizing what was really happening. My phone buzzed again. Another alert. This time, the message was different, shorter, more urgent, almost panicked. Emergency alert. Reports of individuals succumbing to hallucinations and engaging in erratic and dangerous behavior. Maintain complete isolation and absolute silence. Do not make any noise. Do not attract attention. Authorities are losing control of the situation. Seek immediate and secure shelter. Survival protocols are now in effect. Survival protocols? Losing control? Absolute silence? Do not attract attention? That was the final stage, wasn't it? The point of no return. The moment when the official reassurances crumbled, when the veneer control shattered, revealing the raw, terrifying reality beneath. They were losing control. And we were on our own. Absolute silence. Do not attract attention. The words echoed in my mind, a desperate plea, a last-ditch attempt to cling to some semblance of order in the face of utter chaos. Silence. I held my breath, straining to hear anything, but the silence in my apartment was now absolute, complete, broken only by the frantic hammering of my own heart. And then I heard it, a new sound. Not outside, not on the street, not from the city beyond, but from within, from inside my own head. A whisper, faint at first, barely audible, like a stray thought, a fleeting impression, but growing steadily louder, clearer, more insistent. A voice, whispering my name. Michael. It was my name, definitely my name, whispered softly, intimately, with chilling familiarity. Michael. The whisper repeated, closer now, louder, more insistent, as if the voice was right beside me, breathing down my neck, speaking directly into my ear. Michael, we see you. We? Who was we? The silent watchers in the windows? The figures in the doorways? The hallucinations? Or something else? We know you're there, Michael. The whisper continued, weaving its way into my thoughts, intertwining with my fears, amplifying my anxieties, blurring the lines between reality and hallucination, between inside and outside, between self and other. We want to show you, Michael. Show me what? Show me the truth? Show me the source of the hallucinations? Show me something I didn't want to see? Don't be afraid, Michael. The voice was soothing now, gentle, almost maternal, wrapping around me like a warm blanket, lulling me into a false sense of security, of comfort, of trust. Just open your eyes, Michael. Open my eyes? But my eyes were already open. I was seeing everything. The darkened room, the silent apartment, the empty city outside. What more was there to see? No, Michael, not those eyes, the voice whispered, its tone shifting subtly, becoming colder, sharper, more insistent. Open your inner eyes, Michael. Let's show you the real world. The real world? Was this not the real world? Was everything I was seeing, everything I was experiencing, just a hallucination? And if so, what was real? What was true? What was beyond? The whisper intensified, becoming a chorus of voices, layered, harmonious, overwhelming, flooding my mind, drowning out my thoughts, erasing my doubts, replacing my fear with a strange, unsettling curiosity. Open your eyes, Michael. See the truth, Michael. Join us, Michael. Become one with us, Michael. The voices were pulling me, urging me, compelling me, drawing me towards something. Something beyond the silence, beyond the darkness, beyond the fear. Something beckoning. And as the whispers intensified, as the chorus of voices grew louder, as the darkness deepened, I felt myself changing, shifting, becoming something else, something more, something other. And in that moment, as the hallucinations consumed me, as the real world faded away, as the whispers became my own thoughts, I understood. There were no mass hallucinations. There was only awakening. If you found yourself captivated by this descent into madness and the unsettling whispers of the unseen, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Your support fuels these explorations into the darkest corners of the mind and allows me to bring you more stories that blur the line between reality and nightmare. Don't forget to hit the notification bell to ensure you never miss a new journey into the depths of fear. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes the most terrifying hallucinations are the ones that might just be real.